Have you ever met one of those people who seem to succeed at whatever they do, without necessarily trying that hard? Well, Samuel Bellamy was certainly one of those people, for he was said to score one of the biggest treasure hauls in history, quite early on in his pirate career, all whilst at the age of just 28 years old. Sometimes known as Black Bellamy, Samuel Bellamy was well known for his distinctive figure, a tall man with a strong frame. He was often described as being impeccably mannered, showing kindness and understanding to those he came across, even those he plundered. He was said to enjoy expensive clothes, particularly black coats, and wouldn't say no to a couple of pairs of dueling pistols, which he always carried on his person. He was the youngest child of 6 siblings, born in 1689 in Devonshire, England, and would go on to become a sailor at a very young age. He was perhaps a few years short of 18 when he signed up for the Royal Navy, and was said to even participate in several battles. But in 1715, Bellamy was said to travel to Cape Cod, Massachusetts, having left the Royal Navy in seek of his own adventure. This was possibly to locate members of his extended family. According to some local lore, it's been said that he hooked up with a woman named Goody Hallett, sometimes referred to as Maria, who lived in the area of Cape Cod. Whether or not she actually existed, or if this was even the reason for Bellamy's visit, is unknown. But there are those who believe that he had become infatuated with the woman, having met her during his service in the Navy. He was said to have promised to return to her once his service was over, but apparently, her parents did not like him at all, claiming that he was beneath her, and that he did not have the financial stability to make a good husband. There are some who believe that this was the sole reason that Samuel Bellamy became a pirate in the first place, so that he could accumulate a significant amount of money to win over the love of his life. He left Cape Cod in early 1716 with a group of men to seek treasure on the Florida coast. This is where a Spanish fleet of vessels that were carrying tons of treasure were famously destroyed by a hurricane, littering gold and silver all over the place. Even to this day, gold and silver coins are said to still wash up on the beach. Whilst on this endeavour, Bellamy met a wealthy man named Palgrave Williams, who agreed to fund Bellamy's expedition, likely because he saw the potential in Bellamy to find treasure on the Florida coast, and thus making him a whole lot more richer. During this time, Goody Hallett was said to give birth to Bellamys Son, and hid the child in the barn for fear of her parents finding out. She was said to leave the child alone for moments at a time, as she went foraging for food, but on one occasion, when she returned, she found that the baby had choked to death on straw. To make matters worse, Hallett was arrested for the child's murder and imprisoned. While her sentence was relatively short given that she didn't mean to actually kill the child, she was still exiled from the town. Even after all of this, she still waited for Bellamy to return in Eastham, though she would never see him again. The treasure hunting gig didn't pan out either, and before long, Bellamy had turned to a life of piracy, and joined the crew of none other than everyone's favourite sellout, Benjamin Hornigold, who was the commander of the Mary Ann, along with his first mate Edward Teach, the man we now know as Blackbeard. In the summer of 1716, the crew had long since become annoyed with Hornigold because of his loyalty to the English and his unwillingness to attack or steal from ships flying the English flag, despite the profits it would earn them. So the crew cast a row, and Hornigold was kicked off the ship, along with his loyal followers, including Teach. The remaining 90 men of the Mary Ann were quick to elect Bellamy as their new captain. Bellamy was quite natural as a pirate. He was able to quickly capture a second ship, known as the Sultana, and assigned Palgrave Williams, who had joined the pirating gig as a commander of the Mary Ann. They sailed briefly alongside legendary pirate Oliver Levasseur, though Levasseur would leave early in 1717 on his voyage to South America. 1717 would actually be one of the best years for Bellamy, as he was able to capture the Whydah galley between Hispaniola and Cuba. It was a beast of a ship, a 300-ton state-of-the-art English slave ship with 18 cannons. Stumbling upon the Whydah in this moment in time couldn't have been a more perfect moment for Bellamy. because the Whydah had just finished its voyage from Africa, meaning that it was loaded with gold and other precious treasures, as well as over 300 slaves. Bellamy hunted the Whydah relentlessly, chasing it down for 3 whole days before he got close enough to fire a shot. With this one single shot, the captain of the Whydah, named Captain Lawrence Prince, surrendered immediately. Bellamy and the crew quickly boarded the ship, but this is where we see Bellamy's reputation as being generous and kind come into play. Like the title of this video states, he was known as the Robin Hood of pirates, or sometimes the Prince of Pirates, and he rewarded Captain Lawrence Prince by giving him the Sultana in exchange for the Whydah. It was a bad trade for Captain Prince, but that was more than he was likely expecting, given the reputation of pirates. None of the crew were harmed, and the slaves on board were treated as fairly as what was owed at the time. Bellamy upgraded the Whydah with 28 cannons, and turned his new megaship northwards, towards the eastern coast of the Carolinas, and onwards towards New England. With the Whydah under his control, Bellamy was a force to be reckoned with, given the firepower of the monstrous ship. But to coincide with the strength of the Whydah, he also had the Marianne, which he would use to coordinate attacks, what with the Marianne being much smaller and faster. The Marianne would usually scout ahead and pick out targets, slowing them down until the big bad Whydah caught up, and with its sheer presence, usually ensured the surrender of the intended ship. By doing this, Bellamy was able to capture several ships, without actually damaging any of them, which demonstrates his skill as not only a captain, but as a tactician too. There's another incident of Bellamy being linked to the Robin Hood idea, where he takes over a ship commanded by one known as Captain Bear. In Captain Charles Johnson's A General History of Pirates, a contemporary source that details the lives of several pirates, he states that Bellamy had wanted to let Captain Bear keep his ship, but the crew voted to burn it. He then asked Bear to join him, and that he didn't see how Bear, who was likely carrying goods for rich nobles, could willingly do such a thing and risk his own life whilst receiving meagre returns. In fact, according to Captain Charles Johnson, he actually berated Bear right there on the spot, telling him that there was no arguing with snivelling puppies who allowed their superiors to kick them about the deck at pleasure. Evidently, Bellamy was very anti-establishment and was pretty keen on robbing those much richer than himself and inciting others to do the same. His leadership, as you can imagine, was very democratic, where the crew were encouraged to express their own concerns and ideas, and as you can see in the case of Captain Bear, they all got to vote on things too. This made the crew very fond of him, where, as I mentioned, they'd referred to him as the Robin Hood of the sea, as well as naming themselves Robin Hood's Men. But all good things do come to an end, don't they? Just 2 months after acquiring the Whydah, Bellamy explained that he would be leaving to visit family in Rhode Island. He and Palgrave Williams shook hands and agreed to meet again near Maine. Whether or not Bellamy intended to visit his love Goody Hallet is unknown, but if this was the case, he would fail all the same. At midnight on April 26, 1717, a terrible storm swept across Cape Cod, sweeping up the Whydah and dousing it with 16 feet of water. The mast snapped, and the heavily loaded ship with all its treasure capsized and quickly sank. Bellamy and all 145 men of the crew were set to go down with it. 103 bodies were washed ashore and kept both the coroner and the undertaker busy for a few weeks. However, this means that 41 bodies were unaccounted for, perhaps even Bellamy's. Pirate remains were discovered as recent as February 2018, and were speculated to be that of Samuel Bellamy's, given that the body was found near a pistol, and that he was particularly fond of them. But DNA tests confirm that the remains are not of Samuel Bellamy. Palgrave Williams waited for Bellamy at Maine, but when he never showed up, Williams suspected the worst and headed to Nassau, likely to accept a pardon. As for the Whydah, well, in 1984, the wreckage was actually found, and soon became the first authenticated pirate shipwreck to have ever been discovered in North America. 5 tons of gold were still found on board, along with £30,000 of sterling. It almost seems a shame that Bellamy had gone through the effort of capturing the Whydah, even though it was basically handed to him, only to lose it all by a freak turn in the weather. Karma, perhaps? You decide. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about the life of Samuel Bellamy, and whether he deserved what he got, or whether he deserved a kinder fate, given that he perhaps goes down as one of the most compassionate pirates in history. As always guys, don't forget to like the video and hit the subscribe button. Until the next time guys.